Hey, I'm Dr. Pilet, and I want to build on last week's topic, which was, what is emotional bonding? But today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to give you a little bit of the biochemistry of the mind. I'm going to teach you a little bit about hormones. Last week we talked about subjective. Do you remember I talked about subjective? Subjective is the experience I have when I'm with a person. When I go out on my first date, I smell the fragrance of the perfume. I visually see how attractive the person is. I touch her, I get goosebumps. I subjectively experience my time with this person to such an extent that I'm euphoric. And for whatever it's worth, when you're first in your teens, those first dates, those first loves are sometimes the hardest one to live through because they hurt the worst. Because you bonded, you emotionally bonded to someone. The idea of the subjective experience builds into the human brain because the brain builds neural pathways based on that experience. That person, the situation of us being together, the hormones that were generated. You are a creature of God, and by design, you are going to find a mate. You're going to have children. It's something that comes. You have to think about it. It happens all by itself. Testosterone, estrogen, they're the hormones of the human brain that promote you to these experiences. You are attracted. You want to find someone. So from the subjective idea that I go out with someone and have a good time, and I do enough of these selected good times that I bond to them, is a fact of life. Unfortunately, a lot of people use those experiences to say, I'm in love. And they're trying to describe this feeling I have, but because in the absence of that person, I miss them. And they start to say things like, I'm in love. When actually, if you look at my definition of love, think about it. It's in one of my books, but it says, love is a process, not a destination. It's an assertive dedication to problem solve in developing an emotional relationship that we may stay together. See, love. We problem solve that we can keep together. That's love. But when a person says to me, I love her so much, and I say, well, how's it going? Well, got a restraining order. Can't see her. We got a problem, don't we? Because there's no problem solving. Your desire to problem solve in one hand might in fact be 100%, but if the other person chooses not to problem solve, you're bonded. But love, it's a combined effort. It's a collaborative effort. Love is a process, not a destination. I problem solve that we may collaboratively build a lifestyle together. Collaborative lifestyle, co-labor together, work together, lifestyle. Life is what God gave you. Lifestyle is how you lead it. If your lifestyle is singular and by yourself and your partner is not problem solving that we can collaboratively share a lifestyle together, that ain't love. Work through that. Because your self-talk has to reaffirm that you're off the path of life. The feelings that you're having are misperceptions because you're allowing yourself to be carried away in abstract thought. And now we're going to be talking about hormones. The reptilian brain is all about back here, the brain stem. A lizard has 100 eggs. Why? Because of 100 eggs, maybe 2 will make it. 2 will live. You ever hear the expression about eat your young? Lizards eat their young. The little baby lizard pops out the shell, mama will eat it for dinner. So, I got to get the hell out of this nest is one of the first things that a reptile may experience. But what you have to realize is as these reptiles experience life, the ones that survive become, if you will, ingrained in certain behaviors that become instinctual, and those instinctive behaviors get passed off to their generations. Primitive animals are instinctual. They know to go find food. They know to kill food. They know to eat food. But just as that lizard, when it sees a shadow and runs for cover, it survives. The one that didn't dies. They don't pass on the instincts. But as you all sit in this room and you look at me, you have thousands of years of ancestors that survived for you to be here. Each one of you in this room has thousands of years of ancestors that survived for you to be here. And as the human brain has developed, the brainstem, we all have a brainstem, and it's very primitive and very instinctual, but you also have something that's unique to being a Homo sapien or mammal, and that is the cerebral cortex. This part of your brain up here is the abstract mind. It's the mind that allows you to have intuition. I can put up here in a chart and explain to you how gases expand in a rifle barrel and that a projectile comes out of that barrel and is flying at 2,400 feet per second, and you have enough intuition to figure out, don't stand in front of a rifle barrel. You don't have to do it to learn it. You can perceive it by conscious thought, abstract thinking. That's what makes the human brain so cool. We can figure things out to a whole different level. The reptile that got eaten, that they're done. And the instincts don't get passed on. But we're Homo sapiens, we're mammals, we have a cerebral cortex. We have an ability to take information and, if you will, summarize it, condense it, put it together in a form that we can use it in other instances, because we are that higher level of a functioning animal. But we are driven by hormones. And today I'm going to talk about hormones and emotional bonding as sort of a carry-on to last week's topic. Because I'm going to give you some really cool information. Information about how your brain functions and how it affects relationships and how it affects your way of, in fact, designing your life by using the cerebral cortex. One thing we start off with very basic is that there's a key ingredient in your body that has to do with the way your mind works. A few weeks ago I talked about how you have 4 pounds of gray material, billions and billions and billions of neurons. And when you're born, they're all just a mass of cells that really aren't connected in any way. And I'm going to take you forward because neurologists have figured out that when they take the human brain and they probe it, they find, wow, I put a probe right here and that's the forefinger, and I put a probe right here and that's the big toe. And as they touch parts of the brain, they find that parts of the brain are selective and specific to feelings in certain parts of the brain. Does that make sense to you? Sight, a certain part of the brain, is all about processing visual information. Speech, part of the brain, all about verbal information. Hearing, got that? But when you're born, you just got this chunk of meat up here that has no neural pathways yet. You're not instinctual yet. You know, yeah, when you're hungry, you cry, so maybe you do have some instincts, right? But as you are watching the world around you, you're beginning to realize, oh my God, if I touch something hot, my fingers touch it hot, I see it, oh, it's a hot plate, I see a red hot plate, I touch it, I hear mom say, no! All of those feedbacks come into the brain and a neural pathway is created. A neural pathway that put sight, hot plate, fingers touched it, no! All comes together and a neural pathway, a neural branch is created. What's interesting about this pathway is it becomes coated in myelin. Myelin is the coating, like if you think of electrical wiring, you have copper wire, if you coat it in plastic, now it's a superconductor. Myelin coats your neural pathways. And up until puberty, myelin is alive and well. As you are experiencing life and learning, oh, I hear a canary speak. I see the canary. That's what a canary is. A canary, bird, flies. You're developing branches, and myelin is coating all of those. So from birth, as you get towards teens, you're always creating neural pathways. Myelin is alive and well, probably into your teens, and it drops off dramatically. Now what's interesting is if you're 8 years old and your dad brings you fishing, you've developed a neural pathway. Ah, open water. Oh, there is water. There's fish in the water. I can see the fish in the water. I can smell the salt. I can feel the breeze. I can see, oh, my dad's catching a fish. Wow, that feels good. You create a neural pathway. That neural pathway is reinforced, coated with myelin, and you carry it for the rest of your life. Now, what's interesting about this, as a very young age, as you get into your teens, you're robust in creating new neural pathways. But as you get older, because myelin is no longer produced, a lot of the entrained neural pathways are there for life, and people find themselves resistant to try new things. You hear people say things like, same old, same old. You want to go do something? Let's go do something really different. Nah, I don't think so. They're not as excited. Their intuition doesn't kick in to say, let's try new things. You ever been bowling? Let's go bowling. A 25-year-old might say, I don't want to go bowling. A kid, yeah, let's go bowling. You're more open to new things. You can't wait to try something different. And we become entrenched, if you will, in patterns that become habits. Patterns that become habits. Last week's topic, if you remember, a pattern, something you do repeatedly, becomes a habit. And when you look up by definition what a habit is a subconscious pattern that has been entrenched into you in such a way that it's a behavioral habit. Look it up. But now when we talk about myelin and branches and the idea that your brain quits making all these new neural pathways, this is so important. It's so important because a lot of times when you meet that first love, the fragrance of her perfume, the sight of her dress, the idea that you cognitively see her as beautiful and it's your first experience, we hear people all the time say the first love is the hardest to get through because it's a broken heart that lasts forever. That idea that you can become, if you will, entrained with a memory of a past broken relationship, and it might affect you in the future as now you are a little bit hesitant to try again. Why? Because the last one hurt so much. And the idea that relationships were building neural pathways. Now, back to the idea of fishing. You built a neural pathway that's a branch that has to do with fishing. For the rest of your life, you will add to that neural pathway, but you don't create a new one. It's like a branch to a tree. You add leaves to it, but you don't build a new branch. You follow that? You're flourishing as you take that neural pathway and expand it, but you don't create new neural pathways. Does that make sense to you? All right. So now we're going to start getting into some heavy stuff. You already know about myelin, and it promotes neural pathways, and once they're in place, they stay forever. Now we're going to start talking about some good stuff and some bad stuff, if you will. You have positive hormones and you got negative hormones. Has anybody ever heard of cortisol? A lot of time we call it the stress hormone, cortisol. You know, reptiles don't have cortisol. If they do, I haven't read about it. But cortisol is the spread. It's the hormone that when you get in your body, you want to get rid of it. You want to get rid of it. It makes you feel bad. We call it the stress hormone. Got that? When your body is inundated with stress as a natural outcome by genetic design, your body wants to feel good. Positive and negative energy. When your body feels negative, it automatically wants to feel positive. Guess what? Cortisol, the stress hormone, is also compensated by positive hormones that can relieve the negative energy. It can relieve the negative energy. Remember I talked about patterns? You know what? I'm sitting in traffic. It's raining. I'm late to get home. I'm tired. I'm so angry. Why? Because I'm late for dinner. My wife is mad at me. The kids are mad at me. I walk into, I'm filled with cortisol, filled with negative energy. Your body wants to get rid of it. Your body wants to find ways to get rid of the negative energy. And guess what? There are some hormones out there that provide you positive energy. We're going to talk about several of them right now. I'm going to start off with an easy one. Serotonin. Serotonin. It's a positive, if you will, feel-good neurotransmitter. And what we know about serotonin, serotonin brings you that competitive edge. It makes you want to compete and be counted. It makes you want to rise your head above the crowd and be recognized. If you're out and you're on a date or you're with a group of your buddies, if you will, and you see someone that's really attractive, she's hot, she looks sharp, you begin to think, wow, I want to meet her. I want to say hi. I want to say something that brings me into this conversation. Maybe I can get her phone number. Serotonin, the competitive edge. When you get a job and you're in a workforce with everybody else is just bland and you want to step ahead because I want to be the boss. When you go into real estate because you want to buy your own little real estate agency so you can make your own name and place in life, that's serotonin. I want to be counted. I want to make a difference. I want to be recognized. It's the competitive hormone. When cortisol hits and you're inundated with, in fact, stress, well, what kind of stress would that be? Well, you go to work and your boss is yelling and screaming at everybody because the production was down, because nobody made their quotas. When the weather's so bad that the traffic's in gridlock and you want to get home and you can't get home. The abstract mind, if you will, the cerebral cortex, has a way of looking at things that can produce cortisol. And the way you respond to cortisol is unique, in fact, to you. When, in fact, if you're in a work environment and everybody's yelling and screaming because quotas weren't met, a lot of times Wait, I'll fix it, boss. Let me take care of it. Trust me. You step up to the plate. I want the recognition. I want to do this because I can make a difference. Relational issues. Sweetie, guess what? You're unhappy. I love you. We're going to solve this problem. Serotonin, pumping into the air, removes the cortisol. All these hormones I'm talking about have a short half-life. They're in your body for an hour or two, then they're gone. Serotonin, the feel-good transmitter that has to do with the competitive edge. I'm watching New Orleans Saints last week. Hard to believe that 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter and the Saints are behind 31-16. Those guys behind 31-16, 5 minutes left. I guarantee a serotonin pumped into some of them because they won the game. They won the game. And I hear from the NFL, one of the most exciting games of the year. Because all of a sudden, these guys found energy they didn't know they had because they weren't going to lose. Competitive edge. Serotonin. Cortisol. You don't think they were stressed out when they thought they were going to lose 31-16? 5 minutes left in the game? Of course they were stressed out. One neurotransmitter. Now we're going to talk about another one called oxytocin. Oxytocin is the transmitter that has to you wanting to belong. Membership. Fraternities, sororities, being a part of a team. I used an example before about a football team. Those guys, the tight end, running backs, quarterback, the center, they are all experiencing oxytocin because it's membership. We're going to play as a team. Tell you what, buddy, you take care of that guy right there, and I'm going to get around him. It's all for you, man. I've got it. I'm for you, too. We bond. We connect. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone that brings about the energy for you to connect to others. When relationships fall apart and you feel like I got to pick up that phone and talk to somebody, guess what's happening? Say it. Oxytocin. Oxytocin is coming about in you, creating within your neural pathways. I'm going to call my best friend. I'm going to call someone that can help me with this issue. I'm going to pick up the phone right now and call oxytocin. Cortisol. You go home and the person you think you're in love with, I'm going to help you from last week's topic. You're subjectively, emotionally bonded. You had a lot of good experiences, but you didn't ask enough questions. You didn't really get to know him. You're 4 months into this relationship and you meet the real person. And now as you met the real person is really not a good match for you. Why? Because your subjective experience was partying and going out, having great sex, but it didn't have nothing to do with those things that have to do with responsibility and accountability. Do you really work in your profession, or do you just tell me you work in your profession? You realize how many times I run into people that tell me, I want to go to college and get a degree in something, whatever, and never even enroll in school? All eyewash. And subjective experiences. We go out, we have fun, we enjoy, we sleep together, we play together, we have fun together, but I don't take the time to figure out who you really are. That's the objective questionnaire I ask you. Find out who you're dating by asking the tough questions. But now we're talking about oxytocin, bonding, calling people that you can talk to. And so all that's come into play. You're going out with your friends, you see somebody you're interested in. Serotonin, I'm going to meet her. You meet her, oxytocin, we have a group of our friends that I enjoy being with. We enjoy being together. When you find out that person's left you, oxytocin says, I got to call somebody and talk because it hurts. Why does it hurt? The cortisol has been dumped into your bloodstream because you're in pain, emotional pain. And when the cortisol is dumped into your bloodstream, you want to solve it. Oxytocin gets you that social support. Now we got some other ones out there. Dopamine. Y'all ever hear of runner's high? Okay. And what hormone has to do with runner's high? Endorphins. Dopamine, endorphins, two very powerful neurotransmitters. Dopamine's important because dopamine, you want to, if you will, achieve some success that's attractive to you. It's a simple example, but this is the way I can explain it. A deer is sitting out in the field and it looks and it sees a blueberry tree. It sees blueberries. Dopamine. Whoa, I'm going to go eat the blueberries. And when it eats the blueberries, it's flooded with dopamine. But here's what's interesting. Once your neural pathways have connected, the tree, the sight, eating blueberries, dopamine, every other time you eat blueberries, you don't get dopamine. Why? Because you ate because you were hungry. and you were hungry is a pattern that becomes a habit. And a lot of times you keep eating the blueberries, not because of dopamine, but because you've developed a habit. Achievement. Achieving some success. I'll give you an example and make sense to you. I work with a lot of people, they say, you know, I want to go to college. The idea of enrolling in a junior college, that's the equivalent of the blueberries. Boy, that looks attractive. Now they get their acceptance letter and they go to school. And they are, in fact, feeding on the self-esteem and self-worth that has to do with, I'm feeding off of this status, the social status. And you know, after the end of the first semester, they do good. After the second semester, good. But by the time you get to your second and third year, you start to say, why am I doing this? See, the dopamine cut stops. It doesn't last forever. The dopamine gets you started, but the pattern becomes a habit, and the habit which continues. And now you need the cerebral cortex to reinforce, why are you doing this? Because the cerebral cortex has to look beyond, well, it was really good when it started, and it's not fun anymore, but the end result is worthwhile, so I'm going to keep doing it. Dopamine, cerebral cortex, higher functioning animals. And then, of course, we talk about the runner's high. Endorphins. Endorphins are really interesting. Endorphins help you push through pain. Help you endure situations that are very difficult. Sometimes in a relationship where your partner is very angry and they're accusing and everything in you wants to run because you're hurt, your endorphins pump in and you're going to, instead of run out the door, say, let's talk about it, let's be solutions focused, because your endorphins are going to help you get through the pain of this particular situation where I'm insulted by the things you're saying to me, but I'm going to push through it. On a physical level, there's another way to look at endorphins, and I gave the group earlier an example of this. I'm a pretty heavy guy. I'm not a big runner. I don't run anymore, but I used to run. And I had some buddies that were running a 5-mile race. I had not been training. You know, I'd spent a lot of my life in the military, running 3 miles several times a week, but it's a unit pace. It's not an all-out run. So running 3 miles at a pace is fairly easy, but an all-out run competitively. But I got there with my friends. And I was going to, again, oxytocin, run with them. Get it? Serotonin, competitively run with them. 2 hormones, all happening at the same time. Now the race starts. It was a 5-mile race and they had it marked. 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile. And I said to myself, I'm going to keep up with them for the first mile. I can do this. And then, man, I'm keeping up with them. Remember the hormones? Oxytocin. Cortisol was hitting me at first. Why? I was stressed out. I'm going to fail. I'm going to look bad. Cortisol is there. That's where we started. But now the oxytocin, being with my buddies, the serotonin, I'm going to compete. Does that make sense to you? So now the race begins. And I just start getting a pace. And I hit the first mile. I couldn't believe I did the first mile. And they're still running and I want to be with them. So I'm going to do mile number 2. And I did mile number 2 and it was a pace that I have never run at before. And there we go, mile number 2. Mile number 3, man, I'm telling you, now, if you will, my pain is really starting to hurt. So what kicks in? What neurotransmitter kicks in when your legs start to hurt? Endorphins. Now the endorphins start to kick in. I have done 3 miles at a pace that, holy shit. But again, they're my buddies, and I'm going to keep up with them just 1 more mile. You know what? If I got to fall out and I make 4 miles, I'll feel okay. I made 4 miles and I keep the pace. You know what? By the time I got to the 4 mile, I pushed through to the 5th mile. And to this day, I still remember, unbelievable, I ran 5 miles in 39:39. For a big guy, that's a miracle. Still got the time on the clock, 39:39. But then the endorphins wore off. Endorphins prevent you from feeling pain. I am kind of walking to my car, and I am getting into the car, and I get to my apartment. I put myself in the tub, and I filled it up with some hot water. Oh, my God. Guys, I couldn't barely walk for 2 days. It was so painful. I have never experienced pain like that. Unbelievable. But the endorphins got me through. But think about what happened. Think about the oxytocin for me would be with my buddies. Think about the serotonin that's pumping there because I want to compete. Think about the endorphins that are pushing through the pain. Think about the dopamine that's hitting when I see the end where it says, finish! And I made it! Yes, I made it! It was all there. But your body is very selective when it comes to hormones and neurotransmitters. As your body produces them, it reabsorbs them pretty fast. So the euphoric high only lasts a little bit. When your team wins and you're jumping up and down, you feel it for half an hour, maybe an hour, but you go to bed at night and it's a memory. When you relive the memory, you can enjoy the pleasure of the moment, but it's never the same as the hormonal surge that comes in your body. Does that make sense to you? So when we talk about emotional bonding, subjective versus objective. When we talk about emotional bonding, subjective versus objective. When you're subjectively in a relationship, all these things can come together at the same time. You feel good because I enjoy being with you. I enjoy the people you're with. See, that's the oxytocin. I enjoy being with you because the things we do, it just selectively bring about to me a vision of us being together. See, that's the dopamine. Mate selection, finding the partner that's perfect for you. Where it tends to get into trouble is a lot of times we get so emotionally caught up in the relationship, we don't really take the time to invest. Is this the right person for you? You heard me say earlier, just because it feels good doesn't mean you should do it. See, that's the cortex. That's the part of you that has abstract thinking. That's the part of you that can stand back from the person you're dating and say, let me do a little bit of an investigation into our history. Or his history. I don't want to be gender specific. But what if in doing a little bit of an inventory you find out that they just broke up with something 6 weeks before? What if in finding out that they just broke up with someone before they haven't even filed for divorce yet? What if in fact you found out that this person is isolating and truly you're the first person they've been out with and they've been in a miserable relationship for 3 years? There's enough information for your cerebral cortex to say, through abstract thought, through intuition, warning! Warning! Your body will produce cortisol as a way of life because cortisol is the I don't feel good neurotransmitter that makes you respond to the I want to feel good neurotransmitters. Sometimes we call it the stress hormone. But understand pessimism versus cynicism. A cynic versus a pessimist. A pessimist would say, what for? Why try? Everybody gets divorced all the time. It happens so much. Why be in a relationship because none of them will work? The stress of life is so overwhelming, nobody stays married. Everybody's divorced. That's the pessimist. The cynic is a person that says, the system is broke, but I don't live it. Yes, it's a high risk for me to get into a new relationship that's going to work, but I'm going to give it my best shot. I'm just cynical. A cynic, unfortunately, is a person that can find excuses for them to continue the way they are without changing. Why? I'm living with you, and you're telling me I'm always late. You're telling me that I never have enough. I'm not generous, I'm not kind, I'm not loving. And because I say you're like all women, all you do is bitch and complain, cynicism, I don't take action. I don't listen. I don't change. When people are cynics, they begin to look at the system as broken, and they begin to look at other people as being broken because I don't have to change. You're broken, not me. You hear me say this. A relationship can never get any better than the problem it doesn't solve. A relationship can never get any better than a problem it doesn't solve. That's positive. That's positive thinking. That's the way you want to think when you believe you want life to turn good for you. But when I hear people say to me that the real problem is that the people out there all have mental health disorders, all suffer from bipolar, from different types of narcissism, and oh, by the way, I'm going to just have to put up with these evil, crazy people because that's the norm, that's cynicism. And if you believe that's the case, then you don't bring about any internal energy to change. Change requires you to put yourself into the shoes of the other person and see it from their point of view. Cynics don't do that. There's no reason to do it. I don't have to change. Why? Because you're crazy. And if you don't think that's true, go downtown and sit in the divorce court and listen to the accusations and counter-accusations. Understand that biologically, just as reptiles are born with the notion of threat, if I see a shadow, I got to find safety. Does that make sense to you? that you also have a part of your brain that's very suspicious and cynical that there's healthy people out there. Self-protection. A lot of times your very experiences that were first in life with your first love have created with you a certain amount of distrust. And you don't trust because, to be frank with you, if everybody's first relationship worked out, then all of us would be married by the time we're 18. And we'd stay married forever. And there'd be no divorce and happy kids everywhere. But as I mentioned to you last week, I had 15 people that the combined number of broken relationships was over 120. And the average person had been in 6 relationships so far that lifetime, and not one of them was in a healthy relationship that day when I asked. Raise your hand if you're in one that's working. Cynicism, the idea that everybody goes through this, the idea that there is no success. You have this in you. And just like these creatures that are primitive have a certain amount of cynicism, which is healthy for them to continue because otherwise they would never live, the Homo sapien has to combat that. We have to use the other part of our brains, right here, to combat these negative thought processes where we always assume the other person's wrong and we reject information only because I'm better than they are. When we start to accept that if in us we can produce these positive hormones, oxytocin and dopamine, and if you will, serotonin, and that we can create positive, if you will, environments for us to promote ourselves, to believe in what we do, then you're going to find that this is a topic that will apply to you. Now, earlier I talked to you a little bit about serotonin, and I talked to you about the idea about competitive edge. I believe that every person in this room has a calling. You have a calling. I had a lecture a few weeks ago called, Are You a Human Doing or a Human Being? Human being, from the word to be, to exist, emotions. Human beings display emotions. Human beings enjoy positive emotions. And they enjoy positive emotions as a way of life. They don't look at the glass as half empty, the glass is half full. And how can I continue to fill my glass? Human doings, go, 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 work, 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 never stop, just don't have time for people. We don't bond to people because, you know what, I don't have time for this crap, I just got a lot to do. Excuse me, they do bond to people, but they bond to people because they spend so much time with them, not because they know them on an emotional level. Human being. I will tell you that every one of you in this room has a calling. And I'm not sure what that calling is. You may know that. But as I look into your inner self and we talk about your cerebral cortex, the ability to use intuition, the ability to take abstract information and condense it into something meaningful as a goal, you have to use that if you're ever going to find harmony, happiness, and success in your life. You have to get out of the outer world to get into the inner world to find out what your gift is. Because as long as you stay in the outer world, you're always going to be filled with cortisol, and you're always going to be responding to the world around you as if it's a place that you should be defensive versus offensive. Offensive means I take on the attack. I look for what makes me happy. I look for my ambitions, my drive, my motivation. I make life work for me. When people make life work for you, when you take the action to make life work for you, you have all those hormones because you still get cortisol. But this cortisol is different. It's a negative hormone that is there because I want to get ahead and these are things that are blocking me. I'm going to move forward. I want to be successful. These are decisions I made about myself. I gave an example in the earlier class about one simple thing to do. And if you will, no matter what the problem is that somebody's in your face about, no matter what the problem is that someone's in your face about, always think about solutions focus. Listen to what they say, and the first thing out of your mouth should be something like, I've heard what you had to say. What can I do to solve the problem? Just change the energy. Just change the energy. Change the energy to be solutions focused. You'd be surprised how quickly that changes almost every situation. Also, if you hear the word you coming out of your mouth, one of the guys I was talking to earlier, I said, how you doing? And he says, you know, I'm really not doing really good. I'm in love. I'm in love, but I really miss her so bad. I can't eat, I can't sleep. I haven't seen her in 3 weeks. Well, have you called her? Well, I can't. I got a restraining order. Got a restraining order? Yeah. No contact order. Can't be with her. Can't be near her. Can't be by her. Now remember my definition of love. Love is a process, not a destination. It's an assertive dedication to problem solve and developing a collaborative lifestyle that we may stay together. If the other person isn't problem solving that we may stay together, that ain't love. You're emotionally bonded. Remember cortisol? The stress hormone? I'm separated from them. I want to get them back. So what I want to do is in getting them back, I don't care that they're a problem. I just want the solution of having them in my vicinity. Could it be that this person is the wrong person for you? We don't even get there. We haven't even pushed the cerebral cortex to make the decision, is this the right person for you? Because all you're doing is responding to subjective emotions of the person not being with you. Your heart is broken. You want them in your life, and you're willing to do whatever you can. But I listened to this guy out in the parking lot when she actually showed up, restraining order and everything. And as she's in front of him, all she can say is, you're an idiot. I don't like you. You started taking care of yourself. You started taking care of your buddies and your friends, and you go hunting and you go fishing, and me and the kids were always at home by ourselves, and all you care about is you, and all you care about is your sports and your friends and your you. I heard that. And then she drove off. And he looked at me and said, what am I supposed to do? And I said, in this case, it's really not much you can do. This person has made the decision that you are not a part of their life. And I can tell you that's highly dysfunctional and unhealthy. And she said to me, and how did you know that? Because not once did this person use the word I. Well, Doc, tell me what you're talking about because I don't understand it. Here we go, ready? If she had looked at you and said, I and the kids feel abandoned. There's times that we are together, long periods of time, and we're alone, and we're lonely. I'll tell you that I've asked many times that we share more time together. The door is open. I think that we can solve these problems as long as you'll recognize that we miss you. We feel abandoned. We feel isolated. We don't feel supported. And I would ask you to solve that if you really would like this relationship to work. Do you see the difference? Do you see the difference? I always have the right to say no. Well, I'm sorry you feel abandoned. I'm sorry you feel lonely, but I don't want to be with you. I always have the right. But just the fact that you can take the time to voice a problem from an I standpoint is the beginning of the right direction. Solutions focus, I statements. Think about it. As I summarized what we talked about, cortisol, it's in your life every day. A lot of times your neural pathways are automated that you feel it just because you think about it. You're driving your car and you're going someplace and you think about a person, a topic, a situation. It activates that neural pathway and you get cortisol, the negative neurotransmitter. And now you want to pick up the phone and talk to somebody about it because you feel like crap. You feel like crap. Or you might want to go to the gym to work out. Because when I work out at the gym, I produce dopamine or endorphins, which also make me feel good. One problem I see, if you will, as I end this little bit of a lecture is sometimes things are going good. Everything is just fine. There's really nothing wrong. But we get into this problem of people arguing and fighting because they got to get rid of their negative stress. Cortisol, let's fight and argue. We make up. What's the best sex you've ever had? Make up sex. And we don't realize that the real problem is that we're allowing our negative self-talk to create in our mind's eye that there's an awful situation where we create conflict. And creating conflict, we argue and fight, and as we pull away from each other, the cortisol is pumped up to huge levels. Now the serotonin is pumped in because I want to make up with you. The oxytocin is kicked in because let's call somebody and talk about it. The endorphins because I got to relieve the pain because we're just about to break up, or we're just about to break up and we just didn't at the last moment. Making up and breaking up and rodeo sex, and if you will, the best argument you ever had or the best sex you ever had was make-up sex, is all fitting into this idea of your hormones. And it's all alive and well. So I ask you to think about last week's topic, what is an emotional relationship? I ask you to introduce the ideas of cortisol, that is that the negative, feel horrible neurotransmitter. Think about how your body responds. Your body responds through these other neurotransmitters that you can regulate. But also, if you will, never forget that when you look at something, is there something good in it that could possibly be there that you just didn't look for? And could you prevent the cortisol from being precipitated into your bloodstream? I'll give you for instance. I was talking to one of the guys earlier, and he's breaking up in a relationship after 11 years. And he said, I've offered to go to counseling. I've asked her, as you've said, can we solve this problem that we may stay together? I've asked her to make a list of things that she would like to work on. I've offered to, let's go to a church minister or a private therapist. I've made all these offers, and the answer is no. The answer is no. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I miss her so bad. I'm in danger of losing my job. And when I look at him, because all he's thinking about is the negative, which is cortisol, flooding my system, okay? It's interesting, by the way, one last comment, if you will. It's a little bit of a sidebar. Smokers smoke more. Why? Smoking. Remember the berries on the tree? The dopamine. The smoking makes me feel good. Dopamine. The alcohol makes me feel dopamine. You're getting a trigger. It develops a habit. You get into a drinking habit. You get to a smoking habit, because it all started when cortisol and dopamine, I want to get it. It doesn't last forever, but it starts there. But the idea, I looked at him and said, let's look at it this way. If you've done everything you can do to possibly make this work, and the answer is no. No. And how old are you? And he said, I'm 28. Well, let's just pretend that the phone rings and she says, I wanted to work. Keep in mind, she's done nothing. She hasn't done a group like you guys do. She's not working on self-improvement. She's not working on vision, using the abstract mind to what makes me tick. Is it an education? Is it having children? Do I want to be a better mother? Not doing all that stuff, but just the action of submitting to your request, she appears to say, let's make it work. And now, in 10 years, you're doing the exact same thing you're doing today. You're still breaking up. There's been no advancement in any direction. Isn't it better to say, if I've got to do this and it's not going to work, why don't I do it at 28 when I've still got a chance to have a better life than do it at 38 when I've got less of a chance? If it's got to end, and if it's not your will, but it's there, embrace it. Are you alone and lonely? Because that's a problem. You should be able to be alone and not lonely. Do you need to work on your self-esteem and your self-worth? Do you need to work on your vision of the future? Do you need to find a place in your heart that's about you? Or when you look in the mirror, do you not see yourself, but you see the other person? These are all problems. Problems that we can find solutions for if you decide to move on. You know, I like to tell you guys, you can't drive the car forward unless if you keep looking in the rearview mirror. If you got a bad relationship and all you do is look in the past of the accusations and the condemnations that were made against you, you don't move forward. You stay locked in the past. Those hormones are there, will stay there forever. But as you start to look forward and you start to bring serotonin to the achievement of new prosperity, oxytocin, a new support group that helped me to get where I want to be, endorphins, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to find things that bring me that endorphin. Dopamine, I'm going to find those reward systems in my life that promote me to get to a better place. That's the solution. Sometimes the best thing to do, you might have heard me say this, sometimes the best thing to do is not the thing you do the best. Moving on is hard. Remember those neural pathways? You're wired. You're not wired into finding new neural pathways, but you can do it once you start to accept what the real challenge is. Hey, I'm Dr. Pilet. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks a million.